We're here today with Hans Goto Shihan after a great day of training. Goto Shihan is the seventh dan. His dojo is Bay Marin Aikido in San Rafael, California, and he's the president of the Takemusu Aikido Association. Welcome, Sensei.
Thank you very much. I really like being here.
Sensei, you were one of the first non-Japanese to do a long-term Uchideshi stay in Iwama. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. That is my distinction that I can attest to, for sure.
And more or less, what year was this, if you remember?
This was summer of 1973. And when I was in Iwama, before I went to Iwama, I was introduced to going to the Iwama area by Bill Shihan. And so I happened to bump into him at Iwama Dojo in Tokyo, and he said, "I'm going up to Iwama and to train. Would you like to come along?" And I said, "Sure, that'd be really great." And not having any idea where Iwama was, nor who Saito Sensei was at the time, but without Shihan's introduction, I probably would never have been able to train there. He opened all the doors, allowed me to sign up, and Saito Sensei readily accepted me as a student. At that time, there were 4 Swedish folks, including Ulf and Lasse, who were training there, and they stayed there for another 2 or 3 months and then went home, and then Sensei or Shihan stayed there for another month or so, and then he finally left. And but thank goodness, before he left, he asked Saito Sensei, "Would you like to, what are your plans?" And I said, "I was hoping to stay in Japan for 1 more year." And so he asked Saito Sensei, he goes, "Let me talk to Sensei." And so he asked Saito Sensei if I could live there, and Saito Sensei said yes. He can be an Uchideshi, and I asked Shihan, "What's an Uchideshi?" I had no idea what it was, and he goes, "I don't know. No one I know has done this." And I go, "Would it be rude to ask Sensei if I could think about it for overnight?" And Shihan asked Sensei, and he goes, "Oh yes, please. Tomorrow we'll talk about it." And so, I asked Shihan, I go, "What's involved?" And he goes, "I don't know. I've never done it." He says, "But you should do it." And I go, "Okay, I guess I'll do it." And he goes, Good. And he says, "We'll be in touch." And so, Saito Sensei accepted me as a student, and the rest, is kind of history, as it's said.
So after Shihan left and the Swedes left, what were your first days and weeks like there as an Uchideshi in Iwama?
It was really puzzling. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure exactly my duties, but the good thing was that there were several Japanese Uchideshi. So the 2 guys that I remember the most were named Fukushima. So there was the Fukushima brothers, not like the area in Japan, but the same name. And they were fantastic people. They were from Kyushu, from southern Japan, and they kind of guided me around. I mean, they literally had to take care of me and show me things, and so they were fantastic. There's the older brother and then the younger brother. The older brother was a carpenter, and the younger brother was a Japanese screen maker. So he made beautiful screens. He made the screen in Saito Sensei's house, as a matter of fact, and just incredible stuff. But they were great companions. They were very tolerant of my loudish behavior. They were just so nice. And then eventually I had another roommate. I think they went off to a trip or whatever for a while. And then Umizawa Sensei was my roommate for quite a while, until he got engaged to Harumi-san, and Saito Sensei's second daughter. And then I saw less of him then after that.
So Sensei, you're a third generation Japanese American.
Yes.
Sensei. Did you have any issues assimilating there?
No, that was so interesting because when would say in Japanese that I'm a sansei, a third generation Japanese American, the Japanese would go, "What is that?" They had no idea what it was. I just cracked up. So then I had to look up the term for Japanese heritage or Japanese ancestry. So that's Nikkei, right? So Nikkei, and then I would say Sansei, so Japanese blood, third generation. And then the Japanese would go, oh, but they were totally puzzled. Like it was like I'm from another planet because they just, why would anyone leave Japan, kind of thing. And then why would you come back, right, if you left? And so it was quite an interesting thing. And I'd talk to them and they'd go, and then why don't you speak Japanese? And it's like, oh, well, that was a long conversation. And but they were always surprised that even though I told them I'm third generation Japanese American, they would go, how did you learn how to use chopsticks? This is just incredible. This is amazing. And I go, it's not so amazing. We do it all the time. So anyway, there was some great episodes in Japan about that.
So you must have been in Iwama when Saito Shihan started working on his first series of books.
That's correct. So it was a very exciting time. At the beginning, there were just very few people. Oftentimes, I think class size was about 8 or 10 people, which I was astounded by. That here's this 8th degree black belt and hardly anyone is studying from him. The local people were, but that's pretty much it. And then he was offered to do a NHK, the public television broadcasting documentary about Aikido in Iwama. And so we all participated. He called everybody in from the area, the old students, and he had some of us help out, which was really interesting. You would never recognize me in the NHK video, except one scene I was walking away from the camera, and I actually had a hakama on, even though I wasn't a black belt. And then my other moment of fame in that film is washing my gi in the water by the waterfall in Iwama, and talking as if this is what we did every day, washing our gi, which we never did except for the cameras. So it was really fun. And at that point, Saito Sensei became more animated and more interested in documenting the history of Aikido. And then he with the help of Sugawara Sensei, he began to write his books. And while he was writing his books, he got excited, and when he taught classes, he was actually working out parts of his book. And so he would start talking about Kuden, the oral teachings, and he would say, this is O-sensei's oral teaching, and this is what he said about this, and this is what, and then he started showing us techniques we'd never seen before. So it was really an exciting time. And he would say that, in fact, he could hear O-sensei's voice as he's writing, and O-sensei was telling him to write more, to document more things, and so he tried. He was originally only going to write 3 books, and then he said there was so much more coming up inside, he wrote 2 more, so it was fascinating.
So you took some of the ukemi in those books?
Not in the books, only in the movies. So my roommate Umezawa-san, or sensei, was one uke, and then Hitohiro sensei was the other uke. And so they were fabulous. They're just, great ukemi, great energy coming in. And yeah, that was a really exciting time to be in the dojo and to see the filming and the photography of the books.
So from the movies, we see a lot of high energy. How would you characterize the training in the dojo at the time? It looks a little severe.
Yes, it was pretty severe, but I didn't know anything else, so I just thought that's the way life was. I was sore all the time. I was black and blue all the time. And the only time I really stopped training is when it was hot summer and we did techniques from the knees for almost a month. And after about 2 weeks, all of the skin on my knees peeled and I could barely walk. So I said, I told Saito Sensei a little white lie and said, I have to visit my relatives in Tokyo. So I actually contacted my cousin and I visited his parents-in-law in Tokyo. And they were so kind, they let me just stay a couple days and they said, what are you doing? He says, what's wrong? What happened to your knees? They're just in horrible shape. And I said, yeah, I'm so sorry, and they go, they were really nice. But that 2 days of rest was just heaven. I was still achy, but at least the knees started to heal. So it was really tough. And people were really strong. They were just farmers, so they were just naturally strong. And they weren't trying to hurt you, but they wouldn't put up with any nonsense. If you gave them a hard time, they would just, bang you into the mat. So yeah, it was an exciting time though.
Sensei, as a Uchideshi, you probably spent a lot of time closely with Saito Shihan. Maybe you went on trips with him or did some demos. Are there any memorable moments?
Yes, two that I can think of right off the bat with it. One of the first demos that I did with Saito Sensei was at the National Railroad. He was talking to some of the executives there. So it's a fairly small room, and everybody had suit and tie on, and we were in gi and hakama. And Saito Sensei was explaining Aikido, the history of it, and what it's about. And so I was sitting there in Seiza, and I didn't realize that my legs had fallen asleep. And I went, by the time I realized it was too late to do anything about it. And then I said, oh no, he's gonna have us demonstrate something right now. And then sure enough, he turns around and he says, okay, we're gonna start. So he says, come here. And as I started to get up, my legs crumbled. And he said, seamlessly, he said, we're gonna start with Swadewaza. And I went, oh my gosh. I was so amazed how we talk about Awase. That was the grandest moment of Awase I'd ever seen. It's like there was no hesitation, no like, what, you're falling down? He just went down at the same time and said, yes, we're gonna do Swadewaza. And then we did it for a few minutes and he said, are your legs okay now? And I went, yes, Sensei. And he goes, okay, now we're standing up and doing it. So that was really memorable. The other memorable event was we did a demonstration once, and that was for the Japanese National Self-Defense Force. And unfortunately, at that time, it was starting to rain. And it suddenly poured rain. And being the military, they had mats like this with a vinyl cover, and they didn't put it out there until the last second. So all of a sudden you see a troop of guys just running and setting up the mats on this stage, and it was quite impressive. So we stood there, and Saito Sensei designated everybody's job. So there were, I think, about 6 of us. Dennis Tatoyan, not Dennis Tatoyan, but, I think Dennis Tatoyan was there. And David Alexander was there. And Saito Sensei turned to me and said, well, so-and-so is going to do this, and so-and-so is going to do this. And Goto, you're going to take ukemi for everybody. And I went, hi, Sensei, okay. And it was raining. And so I take ukemi for one person, and then he says, okay, do some motion. And so all of a sudden, I forget who it was, just picked me up and threw me, and I hit the mat and just kept sliding. And then his eyes get big, and then I barely stopped at the edge, right, almost before falling off. And he goes, you get over there, and you get over here. And so there were 2 watchers at each end of the the stage so that I wouldn't fall off the stage. And it was magic. It was great, falling in the rain and just being soaking wet. And then it was like a slip and slide. When I was a kid, there was like this plastic thing, and you put water in it, and water would fly out like this. I remember my feet being up and just zooming down this slide, and water just going to each side. It was memorable. It was really fun, and it was a great event, and I felt totally safe, and Saito Sensei was really happy with our performance at that event.
Are there other highlights from things that you've learned or experiences that you've had during that era that you'd like to share?
I think a lot of things that I learned during that period of time, it was as much cultural as it is Aikido related. So I learned a lot about the Japanese culture. That was one of my goals when I went to Japan, as well as to learn Aikido. But my goals in Aikido at that time were really rather modest. I didn't have a black belt, but my purpose wasn't going to Japan for a black belt. So I really wanted to just be able to do ikkyo on any person without too much difficulty. So just to understand what was ikkyo, how to do it, and can I do it with a tall person, small person, really strong person. And I learned way more than that. I mean, I just gained so much. There was such a richness of knowledge in Iwama, and such a richness of knowledge that Saito Sensei so generously shared that I can barely, put it all in words. It's really amazing to me.
So you're talking about an era now that was 15 odd years ago, half the life of Aikido as an art. Do you have any thoughts about the current and future for Aikido?
I see the future of Aikido as pretty positive. It seems like to me that there's ups and downs, that perhaps in Aikido we're starting to go into or have been in a little bit of a slump. Enrollment is down, perhaps, and the demographics of the practitioners of Aikido have gone up. But I believe, that if we kind of stay the course, that Aikido will still speak to many people, and it will still speak to young people. And young people are our hope, of course, that will continue to bring life and vitality to this art that we all enjoy.
Great. Thank you, Sensei. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.